The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com
We were on a break!
with Ambar Garcia, Brian Broaddus, Nick Harris, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Tuesday, July 30th, 2024, season 20, episode number 11. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break, live from
on cue,
Northern California. Yeah, as soon as we start up, then they want to do the blowers. Anyway, we got a great show planned for you guys today. We're brought to you by LG. LG is the world's #1 OLED TV brand for 11 years and counting. See why at lg.com/OLED Evo.
There you go. There's your read for the day.
Yeah, good to be back with you guys. It was an off day for the players on yesterday. Today they crank it up, and they really crank it up today. Pads come on for the first time, so it should be a lot of fun. A lot of things to look out for. Before we get into that, though, obviously the news that came from the weekend, Sam Williams, MCL and ACL tear. What does this mean for Sam Williams? Because this was a year where I feel like most observers, even those in the front office, looked at this as a year where I think they were expecting Sam to take that next step. What do you think is next for him?
Yeah, this is tough for him. It was, like you said, I think a lot of people were expecting him to take that next step because of the opportunity that was in front of him. You saw Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler Jr. leave over the offseason and go to Washington, and that just completely opened the floodgates for Sam Williams to be able to take on both of their snaps, both of their productions. Dorrance Armstrong was a guy that was second in sacks, only behind Micah Parsons on this team for the last two seasons, and the expectation was that Sam Williams could probably be Micah Parsons' running mate as that athletic presence off the edge, whether he rotates in for Micah or they come off on both edges with each of those guys. That could have been a deadly little duo, but now he's going to have to sit a whole season, and that puts a lot of pressure here on this edge depth, which I'm sure we'll dive into as well. But for Sam Williams, it's super tough because he had the best opportunity of his career going into 2024, going into his third season, and now, unfortunately, he's going to have to watch from the sidelines.
Yeah, it really sucks. And we did that camping out show the night before. We talked quite a bit about him and what we were looking for this season. He was in such a great spirit. His energy, he's one of the best, and I get it. A lot of people criticize him, and obviously, yes, we see all the penalties he draws on the field. Sometimes he doesn't think ahead too well, but at the same time, he's a guy that has the drive and that has the competitiveness to put in the work. And I was very, very excited to look forward to see what he was going to be able to do this training camp. Like you mentioned, Nick, the opportunities that he had in front of him. And it's devastating. He was in so much pain when he got injured. He laid on the ground for quite a few minutes there in pure pain. So it sucks to see such a young guy at a key moment in his career get the year taken away. But now, we know next man up type of situation. Now it's the younger guys. Marshawn Kneeland, he's a guy that everyone's looking to next now that he got drafted, and that's a lot of pressure for a rookie. But let's see and also what the Cowboys are going to do if they're going to end up signing some free agent guy.
Yeah, there's it is a very difficult loss, but especially considering with Armstrong, Fowler, guys going out the door, and you're losing some depth there. And then the thought was, okay, here's a guy that we really thought enough of, when you look at where he was selected. And, I'll challenge anybody to find plays where he plays a low number of plays but has productive snaps. Now, he'll have some where he'll go low into a quarterback's knees or he'll hit hands to the face and you're trying to get off the field on third down, but he's also a guy that could get you off the field on third down. And visit with Mike Zimmer about that. They had a plan for him, like 75% of the snaps were going to be some packages and things that they were going to do with him. And so this is a big loss. Ambar, you mentioned Marshawn Kneeland. he's shown up really well in the early part of the camp. We'll have pads out here today. I'm interested to see how that goes for him. But he's showing some quickness off the ball. I anticipate him getting a lot more work. He has been getting a lot of work, but now it'll be even more prevalent out there, I think, with the opportunities that he'll get.
Yeah, I think the interesting part about that is I think there are two things. One, I think it was interesting to me that he got hurt on a special teams type drill, which I've always wondered, like, I'd much rather see him out there on defense than on special teams, because special teams is where it seemed like there was some of those moments that would show up that were like, what was that? You know, it's just – but, again, these are just – you can't really predict them. These things happen. But even beyond that, I think one of the most interesting things for me about where they go from here is my expectation is they probably went into this camp thinking that Sam was definitely going to be a part of the rotation, and they were probably going to get some from Nealand as well, hopefully. Yeah. And that was going to be their four-man kind of in rotation. Now the question becomes, it's not simple enough just to say, well, Nealand pushes up. Right. The question becomes, who's that fourth guy? And you start throwing out names like Tyrus Sweet, who popped up last year and kind of did some decent things at camp. You got Junior Fehoko. Like, who steps up to be that fourth guy, I think, is the bigger question at this point.
Yeah, you have Viliami Fehoko Jr., a fourth-round pick from a year ago. He didn't see the field at all last year. So I think there's an expectation that he has to be the guy to be able to step up and make an impact. But also, whenever Dan Quinn was here, he was a guy that was maybe sliding in and playing a little 3-tech and then pushing back out to 5. So how does his versatility kind of play into that? He's definitely not a Sam Williams clone, if that's what you're looking for, but that Sam Williams clone is not on this roster. You also have Darrell Johnson. He's a 2023 undrafted free agent who was on the practice squad last year out of Liberty. He's a guy that Will McClay had mentioned almost immediately as somebody who would have at least an opportunity going into this week. And then you mentioned Tyrus Sweet. He played a lot with the linebackers last year, and then whenever he found his active roster spot about halfway through the season, he was kind of rotating in with the edge group as well, but mainly just a special teams guy at the end of the day. But I think those three guys are going to have the first shot, and it's probably going to be a shot that lasts, however long into training camp, however long into the preseason. And then I think the Cowboys are going to have to make a decision probably going into that third preseason game or coming out of it saying, hey, how do we feel about this edge depth? Do we need to add a body here? I mean, there's still a couple of veterans out on the market right now. Could I mention a couple of veterans out on the market?
As long as they're free agents,
yeah, okay.
You can talk about them to you.
Carl Lawson and Yannick Ngakoue, I mean, those are two guys who have been super productive at different stops in their career. I mean, Ngakoue, he's been with 6 different teams in the last 5 years, which is kind of crazy. So, hey, come bring the journey along, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like it, and you mentioned some really good names. Had a chance to look at 4 different guys free agency-wise, and the guy I liked the best was Charles Harris, who was with the Detroit Lions. I felt like, though, if I'm Will McClay or I'm in the pro department here with the Cowboys and I'm bringing names, I'm trying to find somebody that has similar traits to the guy I lost. And I think that when you mention the Carl Lawsons and the Ngakwe's and stuff like that, similar traits. But I think Charles Harris, when you watched him with the Lions and even watching him play against the Cowboys last year, you could kind of pick up some stuff. The initial quickness off the ball, the explosiveness, the ability, might play the run better than even what you had with Sam Williams. So, a guy that can hold the edge, has some power, but has some pass rush ability. So if you're into that market, all these guys are kind of 29 years old. And can you say, all right, we can get them on a deal? Maybe they're looking for a little bit more money than probably you're willing to give. I looked at Tyrus Bowser this morning. He was a guy that had hurt his knee in 2023 with the Ravens. Was more of a stand-up 3-4 outside linebacker, so you didn't see him put his hand on the ground. But if you're looking for a position that has some depth to it, as you look at your emergency board, the edges seem to have more quality. And so that's kind of where I think, like, if you're going to have something happen, maybe there's some 4 or 5 guys there that you could take a peek at.
Yeah, and I think there's probably a decision there from the personnel department as far as a type of edge that they could bring in. You mentioned probably wanting to bring in a guy that has similar traits to what Sam Williams now leaves in the void.
Right.
But there also could be a decision there. You look at all the edges that are on the team right now. Obviously, you have Micah Parsons, who is this athletic specimen. He's a specialty that you could put anywhere on the line and kind of isolate him with an offensive lineman. But you look at the rest of the group, and it's power guys. It's DeMarcus Lawrence. It's Marshawn Nealon. And even if you do look at that depth group of Viliami Fehoko, Darrell Johnson, Tyrus Sweet, you have a lot of power guys. So, hey, do you want to just push all your chips into the table and say, hey, let's bring in another power guy just so we can overwhelm offensive tackles and wear them down by the end of the game?
Yeah.
Or do you want to give Micah Parsons a running mate similar to what Sam Williams could have been as an athletic presence off the edge? I think that's probably some of the questions that they're asking themselves right now and that they will be asking as camp goes on.
Well, what would you guys rather have?
I'm trying to get. I think I'm going to get more of a guy that can rush than the power. And I say this because, Nick, when we watched Nealon play at Western Michigan for the draft show and stuff like that, I think he's showing that he has more quickness and pass rush ability than maybe he even showed at Western Michigan. We were talking to Will McClay on 105.3 The Fan yesterday, and I was asking Will about that. I didn't think he was a particularly explosive or bendy kind of guy, and he's like, no, he's really not the bendy, but the quickness is better than they even thought, as they were looking at him, and they're like, there's some things about him. So there might be some pass rush quickness, but along with that power that we were talking about with him. So that's something. But if I was to answer your question, Ambar, I would try and get a guy that's got some upfield and grab that shoulder and get around. And like I say, Charles Harris would be that guy for me as I look at these veteran guys.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of guys that maybe have a combination of the two as well. But yeah, I'm probably with you, Brian. I'd want to find that athletic guy who can get upfield and kind of attack the backfield in a different way than maybe what's on the roster already.
Yeah, it's a position that's always, you're always kind of struggling to find. You have those tweener guys, and some good players for them went on. They, Armstrong and Fowler, those guys were legitimate pass rush type of guys. But, maybe with Nealon, they've got a guy that does have the combination that they're looking for. I'll tell you what, I think they're trying to make sure they protect themselves at 3 technique. And so you talk about, would you move Golston? Would you move? And I'm like, I don't know. And Fajoko's been playing more tackle than he has been playing edge. So it might be one of those situations where they're forced to put him on the outside as well.
Yeah, I wonder how much this injury, and it's weird to say when you're talking about a guy that was not going to be necessarily a starter, but how much this injury really impacts them because of what they lost in the offseason. Do they have enough of, as Jerry calls them, the war daddies, the guys that really can go get after the quarterback after losing Armstrong and Fowler, who were 2 guys that could come in the rotation and get after the quarterback?
And even
you have enough
then,
of those guys left.
Even then, they were still struggling a little bit last year, getting to the quarterback towards the second half of the season. So it's a big loss.
Yeah, and one thing I do like about it is Zimmer is a coordinator that tends to use his linebackers in the rush game, and so there'll be some of that as well that I think could be helpful. But this is going to be a challenge for them. I think this is probably one of the players that they probably would have said we don't want to. If we had to choose what players we lose, we wouldn't want to lose a player at this position. I think that's a big one for him.
That's an interesting point because somebody asked me on Twitter, I think it was last night, hey, can DeMarvion Overshown be a guy that they isolate off the edge at times? That's an opportunity.
Yeah.
That's an option that could possibly work.
He did it at Texas.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also have Maris Luafau, who was kind of a third down specialty pass rusher at times last year for Notre Dame. He's a guy who would show pre-snap like, hey, he's going to cover the middle of the field, and he just beelines for the quarterback as soon as the ball was snapped, and he was able to get there in a hurry. So, yes, that position group I think could kind of help this depth problem out. But at the end of the day, you lost 3 bodies now this offseason, and you only added 1. So there's going to have to be some sort of coming together as far as the talent that's already on this roster, adding another piece from outside.
All right, personnel guy, get to work.
Yeah, that's the thing about the thing you come to camp with is a list of, like I say, an emergency board. In the personnel trailer, the names are up all on the wall, and then Will and the staff probably sat down and looked at that list and said, okay, if we had to, and then it turns into, next thing you know, you ask Adam Pacifica, then okay, Adam, go sign the guy. So once you determine who that guy is, then you got to go make sure you sign that guy. Maybe bring him in, work him out here, between practices and kind of find out really what kind of shape they're in as well.
All right, we're going to take our first break. We'll come back. We'll get some observations from the last couple practices, and I want to hear from you guys as we're getting ready for this next practice. Who are the guys that you're particularly wanting to see when the Pats come on to see if they can maybe continue what they've shown so far in some of those first practices? We'll do that when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. I mean, you might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
Don't put off getting your oil change, Dallas. Take 5 Oil Change, a proud partner of the Cowboys, is faster than you think. There's no appointment needed and no waiting room. Yep, you heard that correctly. Take 5 is so fast, you don't even have to get out of your car. You can take advantage of Take 5's fast, friendly, and simple service at any of their locations across the Dallas area. And remember, at Take 5, you stay in your car because they're faster than you think. Take 5, the official oil change of the Dallas Cowboys.
If you shout, "How about them Cowboys?" you have that undeniable passion that's the heart of Cowboys Nation. And if you like to drink Dr. Pepper, you love the unique blend of its 23 flavors. Together, your one-of-a-kind fandom paired with the one-of-a-kind taste of a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper is the game day lineup that can't be beat. Better yet, gather your Cowboys and Dr. Pepper fan friends to watch the next game and crack open a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper for everyone. The wins will be even tastier. It's a Pepper thing.
Life doesn't stop when the economy is uncertain. The market might not care you have a wedding to plan or a kid to put through school. And inflation doesn't know you've got a family to feed. But Bank of America does, and is here to help. With digital tools to help you save and local experts nearby, you can keep life moving forward the way you need it to. Bank of America. What would you like the power to do? Learn more at bankofamerica.com. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC, equal credit opportunity lender.
Back to the break.
LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game, but don't take our word for it. Digital Trends said that the LG OLED G4 has the best picture quality they've ever seen.
Wow.
Yep. See it for yourself, Brian, at lg.com/OLED Evo.
Yeah,
let's all say it
Bueno.
together. Let's all say it together. OLED.
OLED.
Got
Man,
it.
that's a tough read. That's
Yeah.
maybe the
LG
toughest
OLED
one I've ever
It,
had.
it didn't butcher her as much as it did you.
No,
Oh gosh, that
Friday.
was so wheels off. That was terrible.
Welcome back. We are in the second segment
Good
of
job,
the break,
Ambar.
live from Oxnard, California. Today's the most exciting day of training camp, in my opinion. The day the Pats come on for the first time. There's going to be some popping out here, so
Finally.
looking forward to that.
It's also terrifying all in the same breath.
Yeah, exactly right, exactly. But before as we get into that, let's start first. I want you guys to take me back to the previous 2 practices. Give me an observation, just one observation of a player or a group of players that really stood out to you one way or the other in these last couple practices.
Yeah, I'll start. Tyron Billy Johnson. How about that? It feels like there's a different receiver every year out here that kind of catches our eye as far as a name that, not necessarily that we didn't know, or a name. It's just a name that kind of popped up from under the radar to being a guy who's starting to threaten for a spot. Now, saying that, there's going to be a pretty tough competition to get that final roster spot at the receiver position, and you also have a draft pick that's factored into that equation too that we haven't even had an opportunity to really see on the field as a result of injury. But if you had to to ask me who has been the most consistent receiver here every single day, you take the names off their jerseys and just tell me which one, it's number 13, Tyron Billy Johnson. I mean, he's a guy who's been super impactful in the short, intermediate, and long range. He's had the deep balls from Cooper Rush that he hauled in for a touchdown in the final practice on Sunday. He's had the short and intermediate stuff with Trey Lance and Dak Prescott. He's looked awesome. I mean, he was a speed guy coming out of Oklahoma State, and he's kind of developed as this possession guy as his career has gone on. And hey, man, he's a guy that's just kind of hung around on practice squads for the last 4 or 5 seasons. He's starting to build some experience, and we see that experience paying off.
A guy that I would say, and this is more an observation as far as like just the dynamics of it rather than plays that I've seen, but Ezekiel Elliott and his comeback and what that group looks like, you know, it's very different than the time that he was here. During the time that he was here, you know, we always would see the dynamic between him and Dak and very close, and he's a very happy and active guy. Right now, it's completely different. Like, if you didn't tell me that was Zeke, I wouldn't know that was him because of the way he's carrying himself. He's like, and not that he was ever obnoxious at all. It's more he's low-key at the moment. He's focused on what he needs to do. He's doing his work with the running back group. He's not like taking over completely. He I'm trying to perfectly describe it. It's like, you know, it's Zeke when he was here. That's the main guy, and he's the leader of the crowd. Now he's just part of the group and just doing, like, working his way back up, I should say. So I thought that was very interesting and completely different than what I've been used to seeing when he was here prior. But I'm curious to see just how the running back group develops. Right now, there's nobody that really is taking over. Everyone's doing kind of the same type of work and the same type of the same amount of work. And I'm still wanting to see keeping my eye on that running back group and see if anyone actually takes the lead. Eric
Kendricks is as good as advertised.
Yeah.
And you watch him play. His ability to be at the right place at the right time. He baited Dak into an interception the other day in practice where we haven't seen a linebacker, I believe, since Sean Lee, when you start to talk about playing pass defense, getting in throwing lanes, getting interceptions, knocking balls down. You know, we're going to see with the pads come on, you'll see that part where these linebackers step up, they thump, they don't bring the running backs or ball carriers to the ground, but you'll see number 50 a lot, probably in your clips. Probably Nick Harris will have a bunch of clips where you'll see number 50, he's at the ball. Wait, he's knocking the ball down. So he's just been as good as advertised when you look at the veteran presence he has and his ability to be at the right place at the right time when the defense is called for.
So as you guys are looking at those guys you've watched through these first 3 practices, as they get ready to put on the pads today, what guys are you going to be looking particularly for because now with the pads on, you can get a better evaluation on them?
I don't want to steal anybody's answer. I don't want to keep going first.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm looking in the trenches.
Yeah.
You know, this is a group that I think has got a big spotlight on them going into
Give me a
training
guy,
camp.
one name.
Tyler Guyton, easily. Looking at him at left tackle, I mean, he was able to do some things last week lining up against Micah Parsons where he was able to account for whatever Micah Parsons was throwing at him as far as what he has in his pass rush tool bag. But the pads aren't on. That's always the caveat. See, now the pads are on, so he's going to have to be able to account for the full force that is Micah Parsons, the full force that is DeMarcus Lawrence and Marshawn Nealon. So how can he account for that whenever the pads come on today? Man, that's going to be what I'm looking for 100%. I think it's going to be a fascinating journey that Tyler Guyton will have out here in Oxnard, and in the preseason, it's going to be really big for him.
Well, my favorite period that I'm so excited to see today, it's when the O-linemen go against the defensive line. And
the one-on-one stuff?
Yes, the one-on-ones. And one of the main guys, I mean, Mozzie Smith, huge year for him. Before the pads coming on and all that, did we talk about it when he had his little argument or fight?
I don't know if we talked about
it.
We talked about it on the show the other night. You guys talked
that's
about
right.
it.
That's right.
In between
on the other
s'mores.
show.
Yeah.
Well, he had some beef with somebody. I'm still trying to figure out who the person was. Apparently nobody saw it. But again, if the fire was there during earlier on in practice. I'm excited to see how he looks, how quick he looks. We talk about how his body has started to change a little bit, so I'm curious just to see how he actually looks in action.
Can I say overshown?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just
Absolutely.
because I feel like, though, that the last memory I had of him was in a preseason game, and I think he had 6 plays and 3 tackles. And I'm interested to see how, now with the pads on, the movement looks good. He looks confident out there playing. I guarantee he's going to get to every single ball today. He's that type of player. And in talking to Mike Zimmer, I'll give you another guy real quick too, is Damone Clark. Mike really likes Damone Clark. And when you dig into with Damone Clark, the physical ability is there, the athletic ability is there. Mike has got to work with him, though, on that awareness and then also his ability to read and to react. Because once he's able to do that, he can make plays. This linebacking crew is so much better than where they were last year at this time. And so as a whole, if you want to watch a position today, and I mentioned Kendricks, watch this linebacker crew today. And like Amber's talking about, there's probably going to be some one-on-one stuff, with maybe we'll see the linebackers working against running backs and tight ends throwing the football. Maybe you'll see a little bit of that. You'll see some 9-on-7 where there's a run period. You'll see them fit in the runs and how they go, and then you'll see some team period as well. But I have a feeling at the end of the day, to quote Stephen Jones, how he says that, in the end of the day, you're going to look at this linebacking crew and say, as a whole, they probably had a pretty damn good day.
Damone Clark is a fascinating one, if I could.
Mike loves him.
It's a fascinating thing.
He really
because
does.
You look at what he was asked to do last year. He was asked to do everything in the middle of that defense. And I think it might be unfair for some to say that, Damone Clark probably won't be what everyone expected. But I think you kind of have to throw 2023 out of the picture. I understand games like Buffalo, where he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time at all times. But I think
the awareness part of it,
exactly, for sure.
The
but
reading, the reacting.
He was asked to do so much last year whenever Leighton Vander Esch went down, but now that those responsibilities are kind of being taken off his plate, he has a veteran in the room in Eric Kendricks. He has a guy that can rush the pass or step back into coverage next to him in DeMarvion Overshown and Maris Leufau. Damone Clark is going to be able to be Damone Clark this year, and I'm very excited to see what that looks like.
I'll throw out another position group that I'm really excited to see. In some of the conversations I've had with folks around here, I think there is a real belief that they have something special in the tight end room.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I want to see once the pads come on is who starts to separate themselves when you start blocking.
Schoonmaker and those
guys.
guys.
Yeah. Can Schoonmaker take that step? Because that's what we saw from him in college at Michigan. We thought that's the part he would be able to come in and immediately be able to be an upgrade there. And I don't know if they got that out of him last year.
They sure did.
The question is now, is he ready to take that step? Are some of those other guys who are really looking good when they're running, in shorts and shells, but when you put on the pads, how do they look when they're having to block some of those defensive ends, some of those linebackers? I think that's going to be the tell of the tape for the tight ends.
There's a lot of us here that have thrown dirt on Hendershot. And all of a sudden, he's made a couple of plays in camp, and they run the way they get the tight ends. It seems the ball, it's either the seam or the waggles where they move, they send the defense one way and come back the other with the tight end. So I'm looking forward. I'm with you on this. Can you see Luke Schoonmaker and others span forward? These guys, they're supposed to be blockers, big blocking guys, and if they're going to run the football, they've got to be better as point of attack blockers at tight end.
A quick question I would have for you guys as far as the tight end position goes is you have Schoonmaker, obviously, who's this blocking guy. You bring in Brevin Spanford, who his specialty coming out of the Big Ten as well was the blocking aspect of things. Schoonmaker's roster spot is safe, so that's not what I'm asking here. But do you think there's a little bit more pressure on Schoonmaker to be able to produce, knowing that you have another Big Ten guy, Spanford, who's ready to do the same thing?
Yeah, you got to figure out too, and like with John Stevens, I mean, if they go long at a position when we break camp and we're all packing this thing up, and we're starting to think about what positions, how's this 53-man roster going to look? These tight ends can make you feel about going long. And I mean going long like carrying an extra guy, and so that's these training camp practices too, you'll cut yourself.
Yeah.
You if you don't perform, you will cut yourself. And everybody's like, the coach has got – no, you cut yourself because you didn't do. I think there's a lot of pressure on Luke Schoonmaker. And I know he's a second-round pick and all that, but there are some guys on this roster right now that if they show better and they, Luke Schoonmaker, I'm not going to say safe. I'm going to say consideration.
Okay.
If he doesn't perform well enough, and they've got 3 other guys, and plus what they got, Will McClay was talking to us about Hunter Lipke, and there's another guy that, okay, you're going to keep a fullback. That's going to keep what's going to happen at running back. Now, does that affect the tight ends? Does that affect the offensive line?
They did line up Lipke on some tight end sets.
Exactly. So
also Hendershot, he needs to. This is a year.
Oh no, I've
he
thrown
needs
a lot
to
of dirt
step
on
it
him.
up.
I have.
Step it up because last year was not good.
Yeah.
And we'll see. So far, I haven't seen him do a whole lot yet in this. Or I don't know if you guys have noticed anything from him.
Caught a couple of passes and stuff like that on those boots and waggles, things like that. But that's kind of where you've seen the group. You've seen him. You've seen him catch passes, and that Schoonmaker's even caught passes. But to Derek's point, this group, if they are going to run the football better, they have got to be better as point of attack blockers. And it starts out here today.
And to that point, there were 2 names. I've been having some conversations with different people around here.
Yeah.
There are 2 names that keep coming up. Hunter Lipke and John Stevens.
Yeah.
Those 2 names
Damn
keep
right.
coming up. And everybody keeps saying, man, these guys are
Hunter
really impressive.
Lipke or John
And
Stevens.
they have
Lipke.
but they have the people I've talked to it seems like they have a mental plan. You always talk about this, Brian.
Yeah.
You have a vision for the player.
Yes.
And it seems like everybody that I've talked to has, like, they see the vision for these 2 players and they're excited about what they can be in this offense.
Everybody wants Kyle Juszczyk from the 49ers.
Yep.
If you've ever seen Kyle Juszczyk play, he's one of the reasons why all of a sudden Christian McCaffrey has space, because they got wide receivers that block, they got a tight end that blocks, and then they got a fullback that they bring in motion that sets as the edge and then just hammers people to get the. So if they, Hunter Lipke last year, during the season, he was what I call a half-man blocker.
Mm-hmm.
He was only hitting half the defender, and the defender was getting off. Towards the end of the year, he was hitting more square, and he was staying with guys, and he was kind of figuring out how to dig guys out of the hole. And
which is a skill. That's a hard thing to do sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, look, Darryl Johnston was a master at it in the 90s for the Super Bowl teams here, of going in there and digging guys. As a fullback, you can't be indecisive. You can't go in there and just kind of stop and shudder around in there, because that makes the back stop. And what happens when the back stops, all of a sudden everybody's getting there. You've got to get that thing going downhill, and Hunter Lipke got better at that last year.
You can kind of see that McCarthy wants to have another John Kuhn in his offense.
Oh, man.
Absolutely.
You can see that. You can see that.
Yeah.
We're going to take our final break. We will come back. We'll continue our conversation on camp storylines. Let's talk a little bit about the running back position. I think there's so much intrigue in this position. We teed it up there with a little talk on Lipke, but there's some other guys we should mention as well. We'll do that when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the Playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag & Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag & Turf, the official Ag & Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. I mean, you might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
From the field to the festivities, Lucchese embodies the essence of luxury and tradition. Handcrafted with meticulous precision, each pair offers unmatched comfort and style. Stand tall while you're tailgating or cheering in the stands with the Dallas Cowboys collection by Lucchese. Shop the collection today at the Lucchese store at the Star in Frisco or online at lucchese.com. Lucchese, the official boot of the Dallas Cowboys and Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Back to the break.
AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys.
Welcome back. It is the final segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studio. Oh, we're not live from the SWBC Mortgage Studio.
No.
We are live from Oxnard,
go.
California. I'm going to do that all the way through camp until we get back to the SWBC.
And then you're going to say
Mortgage,
training
and then I'm
camp.
going to say we're in
live
Oxnard.
from Oxnard.
That's how it always goes. This segment brought to you by blockchain.com.
Ding!
Thank you, Mr. Producer Man, Chris Bean. All right, so let's talk a little bit about storylines. Not the storylines, but storylines. Some storylines from camp. I want to talk about the running back. Stop, Amber. I want to talk about the running back position, and I want to talk about it from the standpoint of I'm going to throw out some different options, and I'm going to ask you guys which of these options is most concerning to you. Most concerning to you: Zeke's ability to be a lead back, Rico Dowdle's ability to stay healthy, Deuce Vaughn's size, or Hunter Lipke's real true position. Is he a running back or fullback? What's more concerning?
I would have to go with Zeke's ability to be a lead back, just because those other three areas, if they don't pan out, I think there's somewhere else where you could kind of fill in and make something happen with it. Running back, it was Rico's health, where if that were to falter, you still have other bodies in that room. Deuce Vaughn's size, yes, it's a concern, but I don't think he's going to be asked what everybody else in that running back room is going to be asked to do. And then Hunter Lipke's positional, where does he go? I think that's more speaks to his versatility. Yes, I factor him into that running back room, but I also kind of see him as a guy off on an island a little bit. But Zeke's ability to be a lead back, if he can't be a lead back, I don't know who can in that room. So I would have to go with that option.
But what are you calling a lead back?
A guy that if you get into a game and you need to run him 20 times in that game, he can do it. And the question is that Zeke at this point in his career? I do think in the second half of the season last year, he had some games where you're like, okay, that's vintage Zeke.
Yeah, I think you can run him 20 times, but it might be for 61 yards.
Yeah.
That's kind of where you're at right now. I mean, it's the tough yards and stuff like that. I think every point that you just went through is an absolute concern. And I mean, the Hunter Lipke one, I think Hunter Lipke, we've kind of got him figured out as being is the fullback, the H, the tight end, maybe a short yardage back. If he doesn't fumble against the Dolphins, I think everybody's super happy about Hunter Lipke and what he's done.
Yeah.
And, but to me, this is where if I'm Will McClay, I'm telling my pro department, my guys, I'm like, listen, let's keep an eye on all these teams that have surplus at running back. I don't know. I'm not going to let this thing get into the season like they did the 1 year with the wide receivers. Remember we're out here and they went wide receiver by committee? Then all of a sudden it said, we need Amari Cooper. I don't think it's going to be week 5, week 6. I think if they get through a couple of weeks of practice here, maybe a preseason game, and it doesn't look like it's like, listen, our line is blocking, but we're not getting anywhere, then I could very well see them taking any surplus that they do have at a position and maybe making a swap or taking a compensatory pick and sending it to somebody, because there's teams that do have starting caliber running backs that aren't going to be starters for that team, and maybe you can determine that you can get that guy and it can help you get to where you need to be.
See, to me, I think Zeke, with that role of having just the split work between Rico, I think that could still be successful, that they could be better off playing that way. And in certain tough scenarios, like closer to the end zone, you can now lean more towards a guy like Lipke. Like, we've seen him do some of that. I mean, he had that one mistake in that game where he
Dolphins,
dropped the ball or something. But I think he can be that weapon that you bring in at certain times, at unique times. But the combination of Rico and Zeke, I think, I have my hopes, and hopefully, I mean, we haven't seen it just yet, but I think that could work. So to me, I would say just having Rico's health more important. And I'll give you just a funny observation that, you know, the little thing, the machine where you put the ball and it goes and it goes to
Jugs machine,
whatever it's called. What is it called?
Machine.
The poof
no,
machine.
it's called the Jugs machine.
Okay. So after practice, you know how they do that with some of the players, and they get in some extra work just catching the ball right there. Well, they had a few of the running backs, and you know everyone's waiting their turn, and Lipke, he's doing his thing, and then Zeke is waiting off to the side, and he's just waiting. Okay, well, it looked like Lipke was done with the work, and then Zeke started going in, and then he's like, oh, no, hold on. I'm still not done, and, like, just gave him the stiff arm. And then Zeke is like, it's all good, man. He took it fine. But then Zeke just walked off and took his helmet off, and it was like, all right, I'm done. It wasn't anything, like, I'm not causing drama or anything. It wasn't anything. But it was just, like, something surprising that you see, that you don't tend to see younger players kind of be like that with a veteran guy. So with all that being said, I'm just saying Lipke is a guy to look for, and I think he has the personality, the drive, and we've seen it last year on the field how he was playing, and I think he will be very, very effective this year.
You know, I agree with you.
Yeah, you know,
you have a picture of the guy on your desk.
I'll say this though, this is a really important position for this team because, and this is nothing against Dak Prescott, but I don't think I want Dak Prescott throwing the ball 45 times a game. If they have no running game, you know, all of a sudden, and, you know, interceptions happen. It's not all Dak's fault on interceptions. Yeah. But the more you throw, the more the possibility of a ball clanging off somebody or somebody not running the right route or somebody, you know, and then all of a sudden it turns into turnovers. They have got to have – they don't have to be – the San Francisco 49ers running the football. They don't have to be the Baltimore Ravens running the football. But they don't need to be the 32nd ranked team running the football. Yeah. And I think that puts so much pressure on Dak and these receivers and tight ends if, in fact, they don't have a running game. And it might even put more pressure on their offensive line, too, to have to protect. So, yeah, and especially if you're dealing with a rookie left tackle, you know, how much do you really want to put him in harm's way early? So figuring out this running back room quickly before it, you know, goes into the point where, hell, the only way they can move the ball is throwing it. And that's not a problem sometimes with Dak. It's not a problem. Yeah. Dak can throw the football and be just fine. We saw him finish second as the MVP. But throwing the football could also lead to more turnovers.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. You look at early in the season, at Cleveland, week 1, home against Baltimore, week 3, home against Detroit, week 6, at San Francisco. You need to win the time of possession battle in those games. And it's probably not a situation like the Amari Cooper situation was, where maybe you can get 5-6 weeks into the season and maybe address it. You got to address that thing on the front end. So that's going to be an interesting factor in this whole equation.
The final cut downs will be big for them because maybe somebody will put a running back out there that they said, okay, this guy is better than, or maybe they just don't want to. They don't want to chance it, and they could flip a pick and go get a guy and then say, okay, let's plug him in and go.
One guy that I would be interested to start talking to some folks about is Malik Davis. I mean, if you're looking for a guy who can maybe bring some athletic presence to marry with Zeke's style, I mean, Malik Davis was a guy I think we were coming into camp last year as a guy like, hey, he could compete for an RB2 type of role, and he ended up staying on the practice squad and just kind of fell off, and we haven't seen a whole lot of him out here yet, but I would like to see what he can bring from an athletic standpoint in the preseason.
Yeah, if you remember the playoff game against San Francisco when Pollard got hurt, they didn't put him in. They went totally different direction there. Yeah. So you wonder, but that was a previous regime in some ways with the running back coach and things like that. So, maybe it was a doghouse situation, and now he's trying to kind of find his way out of that doghouse.
It certainly felt like he fell out of favor with someone
at
some point, because there was a point where you thought he was kind of working himself into the mix.
He looked explosive.
And then all of a sudden it just seemed like he wasn't a part of the plans. All right, we appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be back on Thursday, and we'll get more into it. We'll tell you guys what's going on out here with these pads. That'll be coming up today, so make sure you check out all the coverage on DallasCowboys.com. Till then, for Brian Broaddus, Amber Garcia, Dick Harris, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?